Fessenden.
Fessenden, yes.
Yes, again, we are honored, speaking of one of the things that you do, every Christmas Eve day, you go out to Blackman's Point in Marshfield, where the very first radio broadcast took place, right from Marshfield, by Reginald Fessenden, right?
That's right, in Brant Rock.
113 years ago, I think, and counting.
Yes, it was, 113 years ago.
And that, again, you asked us to write a song for the 100th anniversary, and Keith will play that in a minute. But first I want to let people know about an important issue that you mentioned a little bit earlier on in the show, that the original site where that broadcast took place, the tower, the base of the tower is still there, and the Historical Commission has put up a plaque there?
Yes, the plaque is still on there, awarded by the Massachusetts Broadcasters Association many years ago.
Okay. But the concern is that the land is being sold. That
Yes.
the site is on?
Well, I don't know that for certain, but that's what I have been told by several people.
Yes.
And so it makes sense. It's been a trailer park out there. Mm-hmm. It is wonderful land. It's wonderful views. And the people who own that land, certainly they should be able to capture as much value as they can from it, which probably is not coming to them from having it as a trailer park.
Right.
But I'm virtually certain that when they do, assuming they sell it and it becomes a residential area, whether it's condominiums or what, I think that plaque the base of the tower will remain, and the plaque will remain there as well, because it's a bit of history.
And you perhaps will be working, I think you said you're going to be working with the Historic Commission to see if we can continue to have access to to the public?
Right.
Just for that area, of course.
Yeah, just for that particular
Well, make a lovely
thing.
little park area.
Yeah. But it's going to be housing, and of course, if you have housing, you have access.
Sure.
And it's usually pretty easy to create a separate little path where people can park in whatever the parking area is, and then walk down the path. There's no requirement that you have to be able to drive right to the base of the tower. You can't do that now, actually. But it should be accessible to people who want to see that important bit of history that's been in Marshfield for well over 100 years now.
Now, if our listeners, who I know some of them are concerned because we've seen them respond to the issue, is there any way they can be of support to you in your efforts to keep it accessible? Is there anything that we can do to help?
Well, first of all, the folks who own the land, they're totally wonderful people. They believe in history. They've always helped us get out there when we needed to get out to do a broadcast.
Yes, of course.
And I think they fully understand and support the ability of the people who handled the history in the town of Marshfield to make sure that bit of history remains accessible to the people who want to see it.
Good. Well, we're glad to hear that, and please keep us posted. We'd love to give our listeners updates on that.
I can do that.
Well, why don't we do first radio song now that we've brought it up? Keith James. And by the way, before you do that, I just want to let people know we are back on Facebook Live. If, in fact, we were off at all, we're never quite sure. So please, again, tune in and watch the show, and stay tuned for our bonus tracks, too. Keith James, first radio song.
From Brant Rock in December 1906, he sent voices and music into the air on continuous waves that he believed would bring sound to wireless telegraphs everywhere. You were the first to believe it, first to achieve it. Your celebration 100 years overdue. Unsung radio hero Reginald Fessenden. Our songs songs fill the airways for you. Voices traveled out to ships like ripples across the seas. He had been right all along, where only tapping sounds had ever been heard. Now they were playing the very first radio song. First radio song. You were the first to believe it, first to achieve it. Your celebration, 100 years overdue. Unsung radio hero, Reginald Fessenden. Our songs fill the airways for you. For years, the experts belittled his theories and gave away his fame. Once an unsung broadcast hero, now every radio should bear his name. Every radio should bear his name. You were the first to believe it, first to achieve it. Your celebration, 100 years overdue. Unsung radio hero, Reginald Fessenden. Our songs fill the airways for you. Now at last, Reginald, our songs fill the airways for you.
And that was First Radio Song, and I wrote the lyrics on that. Keith James wrote the music. And thank you for inspiring us to do that. We appreciate it.
Well, thank you for doing it. It's a wonderful thing to have that bit of history, of radio history, communications history, originating in the town of Marshfield on the Massachusetts South Shore. And it seems like it was a long time ago, and it was. But what happened there was that for the first time, radio used music, radio transmitted music, and not too many people heard it because you had to have a special receiver on your ship. It was until that time radio was almost totally Morse code, and it worked. You could talk from one country to the other as long as you knew the code. And but people saw after that happened, after that broadcast occurred, people began to see that radio had other uses, that had other opportunities. And after that, it took about 15 years from the time that broadcast occurred in 1906 until the first radio station went on the air out in Pittsburgh, KDKA. And after that, it was communications changed so quickly.
Yeah, and again, he was another unsung hero.
Yeah.
And I'm so glad. And every time you go out there, we'll be there, okay? Because
Thank you.
we love joining with that.
It's a wonderful way to start the Christmas holiday.
It is, and it's so important to remember where we came from, I think.
And where we're going.
Good point. And we have just loved having you here. We're going to do our thank yous and let you have the last word. And after we're done with our thank yous, we will end the radio portion of the show with Keith James playing Magic Man, which is dedicated to you tonight, Ed. And but first I want to again say how pleased we are that you are here, and we hope you'll come back because you have many more stories, and you need to play harmonica, and weren't able to get it quite worked out for tonight, but we're going to get it for next time, right?
Next time.
He's a great harmonica player.
I scare people with
Not
that.
to mention your poetry. You've got to prepare a poem for next time, too.
I'll bring a poem.
Before I say thank yous, I'd like you get the last word, and then anything you want to remind your listening audience of. And
Well, let's very soon. WATD has been on the air broadcasting for the community, by the community, with the communities that we serve for 43 years. We've had the opportunity to purchase 2 radio stations that were off the air. WMEX in Boston, which we moved to Quincy, and WBMS, which we called, that's where Brockton Metro South, but it was WBET, owned by the Brockton Enterprise, and when they sold it, it went through a number of different, shall we say, well, I don't know exactly what the word was, different functions. But the whole thing about broadcasting is that all I really do, I used to call myself the general manager of the station, and then I realized that this is show business, and that really it's the people who work at the station who create the product. That and you have to let them create the product as they will, because that's their talent. And so I changed my business card. No longer says general manager; it says ringmaster, because I learned that I couldn't actually handle. I couldn't create the acts, but I could keep the show moving. And we have a wonderful, wonderful staff. We have people who started with us as interns who are now in network radio in New York and in the West Coast. I have one intern who started with me when he was in 8th grade, and his parents would drive him in. I couldn't pay him any money, so I gave his parents some money for gas. He ultimately became quite famous as a reporter for ABC News on television.
Yes.
And there are a number of people like that at WATD who have moved on, but there are also a great number of people who are still with us. Yes. And I appreciate that so much. Yes, I can be a pain in the tail, but I only do it because I'm so proud of what we do, and it's only the people that are doing that, the Tims, the Larrys, the people who keep the station moving, and then the people who are the talent on the air. And I just want to say thank you to them.
Well, and we want to say again thank you to you for giving us a chance to bring Twilight Showcase Radio on, our first radio show, on the air, and we're so grateful. We hope you will return many times, including in April when we have celebrate our 10th anniversary. Again, thanks to you.
Well, thank you. And I also want to thank our sponsors who support us and have supported us throughout the years. We have sponsors who have been on for 10 or 20 or in some cases 30 years. And
that in itself is an award, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a wonderful thing. We've done well. All I've done, though, is just keep the show moving.
Well, you certainly have done a fine job of it. So